So with Dave Chappelle's stand-up specials and J.K. Rowling um, bringing the term TERF into the mainstream consciousness, TERF, trans exclusionary radical feminism, this brought a wave of people saying that male to female trans people don't belong in women's spaces. And I find this really sad because I've talked about this in some of my previous videos, but the whole reason why we're seeing such a visceral reaction to trans people actually comes from the hate that was directed towards gay people, gay men in particular, because this is just a symptom of homophobia that's happening. Because homophobia was acceptable. It was acceptable in the mainstream. Even when I was like 10 years ago, it's been less than 10 years since gay marriage was federally illegal. And when I was young, saying faggot and insulting people for being gay and threatening gay people, like, it was very common. I'm sure people still say this, like, I don't have a problem with gay people, but if a guy ever hit on me, I'll fuck him up. So why is this? Why do people hate gay people so much? And, there's all kinds of propaganda around gay people. There's, calling them pedophiles and predators and claiming that they're sexual deviants. Of course, there's sexual deviants and pedophiles and predators in every demographic of people. But the vast majority of any person in any group is just a normal, regular person trying to live their lives. And gay people are just trying to live their lives and go about their lives and pair up with whoever they find attractive. So think about this. Why do people feel so threatened by two consenting adult men being in a relationship, right? Or having sex? This is based on the idea that being gay, being a gay man, threatens patriarchal norms. That is to say that typically in societies, men hold power. And this is done through promoting the idea that women are weaker and subservient, less than, below men. And I've talked about this. It's everything about women. The way they dress, act, sexual expectations, job expectations, raising children, everything that society pressures women to be. So even think in sex, like it's expected that the woman is the receiver, and that makes her the bottom and less and weaker. And she's supposed to be the stay-at-home mom, the caregiver, and the job she works is not the same as the jobs men work. It's service jobs like dishwasher or housekeeper, and men can do all those things too. Women can do most everything that men can do, and vice versa. I mean, if we get down to, I guess, semantics, what can men do that women can't do? What can women do that men can't do? It would be like, I don't even know. I can't think of any examples. Like, there are none. So this idea of separating men and women is to uphold power structures. And that's why men feel so threatened by gay men, because a gay man is feminizing themselves and lowering themselves, and it shows that men are not superior to women, are not inherently masculine. So transphobia comes from homophobia. It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. It's just become less acceptable in the mainstream social consciousness to be homophobic overtly. So it's shifted to a more marginalized group of trans people. And trans people have always been kind of ignored or just thought of as like perverse, weird sex objects. And like what I was saying, like, it's mainly male to female trans people who are talked about. Just as before, like lesbians were seen as these sexy lesbians for men, and they were kind of ignored. And so is like women dressing like men in the workplace, for instance, and wearing suits and stuff. That's seen as a power move because they're moving up in the office. But if a man shows up in a skirt and high heels to work, like it would be this big taboo thing. There's so many things like crossing your legs a certain way as a man, or I remember in school when I was in junior high, they were like, "Oh, if you're a guy, you have to check your nails like this and not like this because that's gay." So it's like, or like trimming your pubic hair is gay, and this and that, and that's why you have in hyper toxic masculine environments they, discourage showering and things like that, and encourage men to be pretty disgusting and rude and hyper aggressive. So there's a lot of reasons for those things, but there's a recent controversy of people going topless at the White House Pride event. This just happened, and a male to female trans person showed their breasts, and it's very telling that right-wingers are getting upset about it. And it's like they call trans people by their assigned gender at birth. So a male to female trans person, they're like, no, that's not a woman, that's a man. And yet they get so pissed off about them going topless, but the female to male trans people that went topless next to that person are just kind of ignored. And that's the thing, like all of this is deeply rooted in woman hating. And that's the flaw in people like J.K. Rowling and Dave Chappelle, who think that they are progressive, they think they are protecting women, but really what they're doing is upholding patriarchal norms. Because trans people, men feminizing themselves and accepting their feminine side and breaking away from toxic masculine norms is good for all of us. It's good for women because it reestablishes that people are just people, and it breaks away from toxic patriarchal norms that oppresses women. And it's good for men because in hyper masculine environments, men are encouraged to be violent, aggressive, and hyper competitive. And I know competition is good in some ways, but this is not in good ways. In highly patriarchal, fascist environments, there's always insecurity, paranoia, and violence because your position is only secure so long as you can dominate others. This is like, think about prison, how violence is ramped up, or in war. It's pretty much who yells the loudest, beats up the most people, intimidates the most people. That's no way to live we're in 2023 and we're still having to fight these barbaric, savage, animalistic tendencies. Like, there's a reason why we developed civilization and societies and prefrontal lobes in our brains, so we can break away from these things, so we don't have to constantly act like animals and snarl and fight one another. And so when people embrace TERF ideology and try to exclude trans people from feminist or LGBT spaces, they're ultimately just upholding patriarchal norms. We should progress our ideals and embrace trans people and fight for acceptance for all of us and break away from toxic masculinity and patriarchy, which ultimately oppresses all of us. Maybe for one fleeting moment, the man on top will have power, but even that goes away. Look at Donald Trump. Look at Hitler. They're eaten alive as soon as they step a little bit out of line. So, TERF is a dumb ideology.